Welcome to Libyth. I'm glad you're here. This week we are in Edo period Japan with the Hagakure, the Book of the Samurai. Today we turn to the characters, the figures who carry the Hagakure, and what they reveal. We've read the Hagakure, and we've looked at how its text is built, the associative, conversational structure, the argument made through accumulated example rather than systematic logic, the tonal range that moves between the fierce and the tender. Today, I want to go closer, into the figures who inhabit the text. Because the Hagakure, despite its reputation as a work of abstract philosophy, is in fact densely populated with specific people, specific decisions, specific moments of human choice. The philosophy lives in those moments, and the figures who carry it are worth sitting with individually. The first and most important figure in the Hagakure is Yamamoto Tsunetomo himself, not as an author, but as a presence. The text was spoken, not written, and the voice that speaks it is consistently recognizable, direct, impatient with equivocation, occasionally contemptuous of weakness. And this is the thing that most surprised me, genuinely warm in its account of the people and relationships he valued. Tsunetomo is not the cold ideologue his most quoted passages might suggest. He is a man who spent 30 years in close relationship with a lord he admired and loved. And the Hagakure is suffused with that relationship in ways that the philosophy of death and loyalty cannot be separated from. What Tsunetomo wants, and this becomes clearer the more fully you read the text, is not primarily to produce warriors capable of dying. He wants to produce people capable of full presence in their relationships and their work. The death meditation is a means toward that end, not the end itself. A person who has genuinely released their claim on tomorrow is free of a specific kind of distraction, the constant background hum of self-protection that prevents full attention. Tsunetomo is diagnosing a problem he sees in his contemporaries, which is that Tokugawa peace has made them calculating. And his prescription is not more death, but more presence. The extreme formulation, think of yourself as already dead, is the mechanism. The goal is the life fully inhabited. Nabeshima Mitsushige, Tsunetomo's lord for 31 years, is the text's emotional center, even though he appears primarily in fragments and anecdotes rather than in extended portrait. What emerges from those fragments is the image of a man of genuine cultivation and genuine care. A lord who read widely, who thought carefully about the well-being of his retainers, who reportedly expressed explicit disapproval of the practice of junshi, the suicide of retainers on a lord's death, because he did not want his death to cause unnecessary suffering to those who served him. That detail is crucial for understanding the Hagakure's philosophy. Tsunetomo's total loyalty is not loyalty to a tyrant or an abstraction. It is loyalty to a specific person who, by all available evidence, earned it. The philosophy is built on that specific relationship and cannot be fully understood apart from it. Mitsushige appears in the text in moments, a phrase he used, a decision he made, a way he handled a difficult situation, and each appearance adds to an accumulated portrait of a lord who was, in Tsunetomo's experience, genuinely worthy of the loyalty the philosophy demands. Whether this portrait is accurate, or whether it is idealized by the warmth of long service and the distortions of grief, is a question the text cannot answer. What it reveals is that the philosophy of unconditional loyalty was, for Tsunetomo, inseparable from his specific experience of a specific relationship. That is both its strength and its limitation. Lord Naoshige, Mitsushige's grandfather, the great Nabeshima lord of the Sengoku period, is the text's historical ideal. He appears repeatedly as an example of the quality Tsunetomo is trying to recover. Decisive, direct, utterly without hesitation, a man whose decisions were immediate and complete, and who expected the same quality in those around him. Tsunetomo never met Naoshige. He died in 1618, before Tsunetomo was born. He knows him through stories. And the Naoshige of the Hagakure is almost certainly partly a construction. The idealized ancestor onto whom Tsunetomo projects the qualities he misses in his own era. That does not make the Naoshige passages uninteresting. They reveal what Tsunetomo values by showing who he chooses to idealize and why. The great samurai of the Sengoku period, not only Naoshige, but Takeda's Shinjin, Usugi Kenshin, and other commanders who appear in the text's historical anecdotes, are valued for a quality Tsunetomo consistently names as directness. They did not deliberate. They did not calculate. They saw what needed to be done, and they did it, fully, immediately, without the hesitation that comes from weighing consequences. The Hagakure is, among other things, a long elegy for decisiveness in an era that Tsunetomo experienced as chronically indecisive. Tashiro Tsuramoto, the young samurai who listened and recorded, is the figure who makes the Hagakure possible, and his presence in the text, though largely invisible, shapes it in ways worth noticing. Tsuramoto was 29 when he began visiting Tsunetomo's hermitage. He was educated, thoughtful, and apparently troubled by some of the same concerns about the direction of samurai culture that Tsunetomo was articulating. He was not a passive recorder. He asked questions, pressed for elaboration, and his prompting shapes the text's content in ways that Tsunetomo's solo reflection would not have. The Hagakure is a dialogue transcribed as a monologue. The questions that produce the answers are largely invisible, but you can sometimes feel where they were, in the way a passage begins with a specificity that suggests Tsuramoto had asked about a particular situation or person. His decision to preserve the text against Tsunetomo's wishes, Tsunetomo had said he wanted it burned at his death, is itself a philosophical act. He judged that what had been said was worth keeping, that the local and provincial quality of the wisdom did not limit its value, but instead grounded it in something real. That judgment has been validated by 300 years of readers. But it is also worth acknowledging that every act of preservation is an act of selection, and the Hagakure we have is the Hagakure that Tsuramoto decided to keep. We do not know what conversations were left out. The 47 Ronin, the group who avenged their lord's death in the Akko incident of 1702, appear in the Hagakure not as heroes, but as objects of criticism. And this is one of the text's most revealing and most contested moments. The Akko incident is the most celebrated act of samurai loyalty in Japanese history. Lord Asano Naganori was provoked into drawing his sword inside the shogun's palace, a capital offense, and was ordered to commit seppuku. His retainers, led by Oishi Yashio, spent nearly 2 years planning their revenge, maintaining cover and waiting for the right moment, before successfully assassinating the official responsible for their lord's death, and then surrendering and committing seppuku themselves. The story was immediately mythologized. It seemed to demonstrate everything the samurai ideal was supposed to be: loyalty beyond death, commitment beyond consequence. Tsunetomo did not see it that way. His criticism is sharp and specific. The 47 deliberated too long. A samurai who has truly internalized the way would have acted immediately, within days of the original offense, even without a plan, even knowing the action would fail. The 2 years of careful planning reveal, in Tsunetomo's reading, an insufficient readiness to die. The Ronin were calculating the odds. A samurai who is already dead in his own mind does not calculate odds. He acts. This is either the most important critique in the book or the most dangerous one, and it is probably both. Tsunetomo is right that there is a quality of decisiveness that deliberation can kill. He is right that a person who is always waiting for the perfect moment may wait forever. But he is wrong, or at least incomplete, in treating immediate action as inherently superior to considered action. The 47 Ronin succeeded. Their success required the 2 years of planning. A charge on the day of the offense would have accomplished nothing, except the death of 47 samurai, and left the wrong that needed to be righted unaddressed. Tsunetomo cannot see this because his philosophy values the quality of the act over its outcome. But outcomes matter. The people who are affected by your actions are not served by the purity of your commitment. They are served by the results. This is the Hagakure's most important internal tension, and it runs through the entire text. The philosophy values the quality of the actor's mind over the consequences of the actor's choices. That is a position with genuine philosophical weight, and it is also a position that can justify almost any action taken with sufficient conviction. The most surprising figure in the Hagakure is not a samurai at all. It is the retired monk in the hermitage, Tsunetomo himself, in the role he occupied when the text was produced. He was not serving anyone when he dictated the Hagakure. He was not practicing the loyalty he preached. He was an old man in a mountain hut, remembering a world that was gone, talking to a younger man who came to listen. The philosopher of total commitment was living in withdrawal. The advocate of selfless service had no one to serve. That irony is not, I think, a hypocrisy. It is a grief. Tsunetomo believed his lord was worth following into death. He was prevented from doing so by law. He became a monk instead. The Hagakure is partly his way of continuing the conversation with Mitsushige past the point where the conversation was possible, of serving, through the instruction of the next generation, the values that Mitsushige embodied. The text is an act of loyalty to a dead man. That is its emotional truth, and it is more interesting than any of its philosophical positions. That's all for today on Libyth. Tomorrow we close the week with the ideas, the themes underneath the Hagakure, and what they leave us with. If you want to follow the whole journey, subscribe, a new book every week. At least we try.